The world, it's your boy, the nonprofit sector connector. That's right. Every single week here on Philanthropy and Focus, we do two things for nonprofits. I do my best to help them tell their story and amplify their message. Talk about message, talk about mission. My mission is just that, is to get out here and every single week bring you another leader of a nonprofit organization. You know, I say this if you've ever visited with me in real life or in fake life or pretend life or, I don't know, virtual reality. Maybe I have to have my own virtual reality thing pretty soon. That seems to be, I see my kids walking around with this Oculus around the house, which, Maria, I can't put that on my face, that Oculus, because I get dizzy. I could barely get in a car and let somebody else drive me. Like if you and I were going somewhere together, I'd be like, do you mind if I drive? Or maybe I'll meet you there. Like, I don't, well, I get kind of motion sickness and the whole thing. So Oculus is really not my scene. So maybe some other kind of reality. But the point is, every week we come together. And if you've met me before, you know how passionate I am about this nonprofit sector. Why? Because the nonprofits change our world consistently, constantly, every second, every minute, hour, day, year, the whole thing. Look, 600,000 people in New York City are employed by nonprofit organizations. It's a big deal. 33.6 billion dollars. That might have been just another employee of a nonprofit emailing me right there because I didn't shut off my emails. So I'll do that during our break. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn. I'm here to learn, but I'm also here to educate when I can. When I know some information, I'm here to share it. And we're here to feature another organization each week, which we do. You listen here on talkradio.nyc, you pay attention on Facebook, and after the fact, we'll be on all your podcast platforms, wherever you go get your podcast as well. So it's a live show that turns into a podcast. All right, so without really further ado today, the only thing I want to say is, as we sit here today, it is March the 11th, 2022. The applications, if you're listening in the New York City area, the application for the New York City Imagine Awards are available. Go to nycimagineawards.com or reach out to me. Tommy D at philanthropyandfocus.com is the email. PHOCUS is how you spell focus. At least it's how I spell focus. And that's how you would get me. Without further ado, I want to dive right into our conversation earlier than we typically do because we have a lot to cover and it's an important topic. So Maria Alvarez is here. She has her master's degree in nonprofit and organizational management from the New School. She's the executive director of the New York Statewide Senior Action Council and the Brooklyn-wide Interagency Council on Aging. So Maria, I usually read like a whole bunch of stats about people.
Oh, don't worry about that.
You know why I don't want to? Because I don't really love when people introduce me. I like to introduce myself. So I figure who better to sort of tell your story, right? And tell where you came from, what, I always like to say, and we've talked about this before the show, like, what brought you to this work, whether it be nonprofit generally or more specifically to the senior community. So if we could start there, let's just dive into this conversation. And as we've talked about, I have some questions along the way. And before we know it, I'll say, hey, it was great having you on the show. Thanks so much for being here, because it goes like a blip. So tell us about you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Tommy, for having me on your show. I could just tell you that your following and your network is huge, is expansive, because I keep on getting, alerts on my Twitter, on our New York statewide Facebook and LinkedIn and everything. So about my show coming up. So thank you.
You're a big deal. That's it. You're
no, but it just shows what your reach is. So I'm very honored to be here and happy to be able to talk about our work. I've been in the area of aging for some time now, for over 25 years, let's say. But when I first started in the world of work, I started out with youth and working with underserved populations, youth populations, and I really liked it a lot. And I worked there for 5 years, and it was very exciting because the energy that children or adolescents, really teenagers, have is incredible. It's undeniable. But then I got an opportunity to work with the Institute for the Puerto Rican Hispanic Elderly, which is one of the major organizations in New York City in terms of senior services for all minority populations, especially Hispanic and Puerto Rican. But it was it was interesting because at the beginning I thought, oh, this is going to be so boring. I would tell my friends, oh, it's so boring dealing with seniors. They're probably, who knows. But I have to tell you that from day one, I became the biggest fan of older people, and I'll tell you why. There is nothing more interesting than somebody who's actually lived life. You cannot buy experience. So people who are who've actually lived day to day have a certain perspective of life that that younger people, and certainly when I was that young also, I didn't have that. And I could drown in a glass of water, where they would say, I went through this, or have you looked at it this other way? And it was true. So I have to tell you that I learn every single day from my members. And not only, and it doesn't really matter, obviously people come from different walks of lives, different stations, different, economic and educational levels. But I always learn something from them because of exactly that. They have been through something that I have not been yet, perhaps, or they went through it differently. So that's why I think it's interesting. It's a field that is fascinating, and honestly, we should all be so lucky to be able to get to the age that if you live 65, 75, 85, 95, 100 years, you should be lucky to get there.
And you said thank you, and it's I don't know what it is, and maybe it's some similar to what you're talking about, but I've always been attracted to, well, I'm always attracted to people, period. Right? Like, like I'd be away with my friends and like not even hanging out with them, be like meeting new people, because like my deal is, my kids laugh, or they used to laugh. Now they'll just say, yeah, Dad, we know. But I say a stranger is a friend that I haven't met yet. And I believe that. I really
Absolutely.
do. We're all connected, right? And we can learn so much from each other. And there's aside from me just wanting to meet people as a general thing, I always liked older folks. I always felt connected to that. And people might say, oh, you're an old soul, or whatever all that kind of stuff means, but I just felt like I was attracted to that. And maybe I was attracted to, and for a long time I had all four of my grandparents alive till I was in my 20s. So that's pretty good for some people. We still have my grandmother still living, and let's see, my father will be 71, so she just turned 91, or maybe she'll be 92 in May, actually. I think it. I lived a healthy life, right? The whole thing. She's still with us. So I was always attracted to that. You and I were just talking before the show, and I was saying, we were talking about how other societies, not to knock our country, but in my experience, other societies really, or other cultures, I guess is a better way to say it, really revere and honor the older people in their families and their communities. Because why? I mean, there's so much wisdom there. So right. Tell me about your experience with that. Just like you're meeting people who've been through so much. You in your experience, 25 plus years, you met probably folks who'd been through war times, right? Serious, like World War II, maybe even World War I, depending on when you were doing some of this, as their older years, or the Depression, right? They have stories. Yes.
I have to tell you, I have a couple of interesting stories that gave me a great perspective on that. So, our organization is largely, we provide services, but we also do a lot of advocacy, and a lot of it has to do with us listening to what their concerns are, and how policies are affecting their everyday lives, and how to improve it. That's why we're an action council. But so it entails going out into the community, speaking to a lot of people. And so on a few occasions, I've had such great, great perspective moments where, so for example, when the 2008 crash occurred, right? And we were going to go into a depression and, a recession. And I was talking to somebody from the North Country, was at we have up in right near the Canadian border. I had to go to an event there, and I was talking to some of our members, and I was saying, yeah, it's really tough, and the economy, it's going to get bad. She said, when I was growing up, it was in the middle of the Depression. One of the things that, we did was, we have land, we grew our food. So we didn't have to worry about
from up there. She's always
yeah.
up there, right? So you have this,
right. So it's how people coped, and so she was. I mean, obviously, she was concerned what was happening, but she knew that there was going to be a solution, and there'll be a solution, and we'll get through this. And don't worry, because she's comforting me. It was great, but so
you said perspective though. Just you said, I took down a note and I put it on my monitor here. I said you cannot buy experience and perspective. Now we're talking about that. She was able to, hey, listen, Alvarez, I've been through this.
Right.
Let me give you a hug. Right.
Exactly.
We've been down this road before, which is, God, I mean, priceless having that sort of perspective, right?
And again, it wasn't a big economist telling me this or somebody from a university. It was just somebody that I just happened to be having a conversation with that had that experience, and those are the things that I go through that almost every day with the kind of work that we do. Another one that I would like to share is back in when the first George Bush was president. That's when they tried to start privatizing Medicare and Social Security, and we, along with a lot of our coalition partners, are against that, and so we were educating the community about what the facts were if Medicare or Social Security were to be privatized, how that would affect them, and and it was funny because you go into a senior center, you go into you meet, and they've been raised to be very polite people. Right. So, which is one of the reasons I'm always telling them, fast forward, with these scammers that call you on the phone, I'm always telling them to hang up the phone, but they're very polite and they don't. So I'm talking to them and about, this is what will happen if Medicare, Social Security is privatized, and, and you would see basically a visceral change in their demeanor, because they understood and they said, there's nobody who's going to take away my Social Security or Medicare, because that is something that I've worked for, I've paid into my whole life, and it's a promise that was made to us, and we will fight for that. And to this day, that still goes on. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the other campaigns that are going on in the city with, for example, the New York City retirees that their health care is under attack right now. Yeah. And where a point where it looks like it was going to be a done deal, they got together and they said, no, this is not happening. And they are in court right now. So, so seniors have a resilience. They're strong. They're resilient people. And again, they know, they've been around. But I have to tell you something, Tommy. I want to clear something up here. It's not because, obviously they need to stay, they need to stay living, and having a good quality of life. That's what everybody wants in this life, right? But a lot of it is not really about them, because they've already earned and gotten what they've worked for. A lot of them are concerned about their children and grandchildren. It's about the future generations. These are not greedy geezers saying, oh, I want all of the, all of the benefits for me and forget everybody else. This is about, really, they believe so much in what they have attained in life that they want to make sure that in the future, their children, their grandchildren, future generations can also enjoy a similar quality of life, if not better.
Listen, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing here, right?
Exactly.
Creating a better world for when we leave, right? Just leave this place, whatever that place is. It could be, you might be walking down the street and you see some trash laying on the street. Pick it up. Pick it up. I know you didn't put it there. I know, but right. Freaking just pick it up. Like it ain't a big deal. Pick it up and put it in the garbage pails right there. But on a grand global scale, how do we improve this planet, this place for those who are coming? And certainly I definitely have children. I hear them. I know they're here somewhere today. It's like a half a day or an hour or some kind of school thing like that. But so future generations, I want to just we're gonna go to a break right now. But here's what I want everybody to listen to. So when Maria and I were talking the other day, I said, what even is a senior, like age-wise, right? So I checked this out just now, and if I did my math right, so we talk about the boomers, right? We talk about the baby boomers, which is a whole nother joke because one of my sons thinks he's funny because he calls me boomer. And I go, no, dude, you don't understand. I'm not a boomer. He goes, all right, whatever, boomer. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like, that's not just a rude thing to say to me. It actually means something. You're using the term incorrectly. So I go, I'm not a boomer. And he's like, what? Again, yeah, whatever, boomer. And so, but baby boomers, if I've done my math right, from 46 to 64, 1946 to 64.
Exactly.
Those are people who are 58 years old or 58 years young to 76 years young. Are those numbers right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Those are not old people, man. I know 58-year-olds
Right.
starting their third and fourth career or business and whatever. So we'll talk about those ages. We'll talk about what it means to be a senior. We'll talk about the programs, the impact that the org is making. This is Philanthropy and Focus. That's Maria, and I'm Tommy D. We'll be right back. Thanks, Maria.
Okay.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
All right, listen, if you're not so busy on a Friday morning between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., do yourself a favor, cut through the static, join me in my attic. That's like the remix of that song, because I get, when it's your song, you can just sing it however you want to sing it. So that's how I wanted to sing it right there. All right, so we're back in the attic. The show's called Philanthropy and Focus. My guest, we're featuring Maria Alvarez, Executive Director of New York Statewide Senior Action Council. And I'm looking over there because I'm going to share the webpage when we either during the segment or when we go to the next break, and we'll show the website. But it says in big bold letters, it says Statewide, and it says 50th anniversary in the middle. So we joked the other day, and I was like, because I did a video about like this show that we were going to do the show, and then you and I spoke on Monday quickly, and I was like, it says grassroots organization, but I was like, is that a misnomer? It's a 50-year-old organization. So we were like playful with that whole thing. Like, I would think if I'm 50 years old, right, I'm like not really a grassroots thing anymore. Like, I'm big and established, but you sort of explain that to me, and I sort of see some clarity on that. Like, grassroots really, and correct me if I'm wrong, and please respond here, but like being in the community, doing the stuff, being part of the fabric, right? Talk to me a little bit about the, the kind of the genesis. I mean, in my notes, I wrote down, why was this organization necessary, which is what we want to talk about today. And then why is it 50 years later still necessary and incredibly relevant? So let's start there if we could.
Okay, yeah. So New York, so we're a 50-year organization, like you said, and we were founded in 1972. And it came from the need because 30% of senior citizens in the country, but definitely in New York State, were in poverty. We're living below the poverty level. 30%. People were not making ends meet. They did not have health insurance. So imagine this: Social Security was enacted in 1935, right? But Medicare was not enacted until 1965 because people were, did not. So you retired from work and then you barely had any income and you had no health insurance. So imagine that right now. I mean, now all of us have health insurance. We've been able to get that, through different acts along the way. But back then you didn't have health insurance. So what did a person do after they retired if they were not, let's say that they didn't have enough, a high paying job. Let's say they didn't, let's say there were women who were who were not in the workforce. They were raising their families. What happens, right?
It's very common in that generation, right?
Right, and it's still common now, and I can get into that later in terms of caregivers. But anyway, so in 1971, there was the first White House Conference on Aging, where people from all over, aging advocates from all over the country got together, and it was deemed that there should be funding for the elderly to become socially active and empowered to fight for their own rights. And that was very significant because from there, the federal government gave out what was called the War on Poverty funds. And the War on Poverty funds, it wasn't just the seniors, but since we're talking about the elderly here, it was sort of like a community action grant for people of all ages. But in New York State, it took the shape of a number of advocates throughout and activists throughout the state in Rochester, Syracuse, New York City, Albany, that got together and said, okay, this is going to be the beginning of the social action movement for seniors. One thing that we pride ourselves at Statewide is that our board of directors, we're consumer governed and directed, is how we put it. Meaning that our board of directors, number one, is representative of all regions of New York State. We have chapters throughout the 9 regions. We have 9 chapters, 10. Long Island is the one that needs to come back a little bit. So if you have any people in Long Island interested.
I happen to be standing in an attic on Long Island. Ironically, who knew? But
well, yeah, we need to reorganize it because we have some very.
But I'm not a senior, Maria.
Doesn't matter.
6 years away. I think I'll be a senior in 6 years. And if I go downstairs later on, I'm apparently a boomer.
You'll be a boomer.
Depending on where I am in the house is how old I really am, apparently. But when we'll talk about that, because later in the show, I always like to say, what's the future? What do we need connection-wise? So we'll talk about Long Island for sure.
Right, sure. But just to let you know that our board of directors, recognizing that the population 65 and over is actually growing, reduced the age of which anybody can become a member of Statewide. So if you're 18 years old and you're interested in this, we're not going to why would I turn you away if you want to help us with our movement? But so our board of directors is composed, they're all volunteers, and they're composed of chapters of people who come from those chapters, but they're all seniors, they're all consumers. And then, we were talking about our 50th anniversary. Every year we get together, all of our members, whoever can come, comes together for our annual convention. And while our convention is wonderful because it's, we have a lot of the latest information on the field of aging, and the members like it also, not because they just get together and they formed really nice bonds, but also because they take the information back to their communities, which is what a grassroots organization does, right? People in a grassroots movement take information back and spread it around to their communities so that then we can get more strength and awareness. But more importantly, they vote, our members vote on our legislative agendas, both federal and state, every single year, to make sure that we are addressing the needs that the membership wants addressed. It's not because I said something is important or somebody in my staff says, oh, this looks good. No, we have an agenda that has been voted and ratified by our members and updated every year. Furthermore, we also have a public policy committee made up of members as well, that gets together monthly to review any other issues that might arise between conventions, to see if they are issues that we should be addressing, getting more information about, or bringing to our members throughout the year and at the next convention. So so we pride ourselves that we have a good hand on what's going on in the community, not only through our 3 helplines. We have 3 helplines that provide services that are free and unbiased. Our counselors are all certified through the state and federal governments to provide help on things like health insurance, affordable prescription drugs, healthcare fraud prevention, as well as patients' rights for people who are in a hospital or an institution. Beyond that, we also do a lot of community outreach. We have chapters in 9 regions of the state, and we come out into the community. Anybody invites us, we're there. We like to be out.
Yeah.
And we have teach-ins, and now in COVID, we've done a lot of virtual activities. So now we have teach-ins where we talk about issues that might be coming up and might be hearing about. And also because of the issues with the nursing homes, we were hearing a lot from the employers. We were hearing a lot from the nursing homes about the hardships they were going through in the public. But we felt that residents and family members needed to get more information about what their rights are, because it was just very confusing, and to be able to see how the policies that were being enacted were affecting them, so that then we could do some advocacy on their behalf.
I mean, so much here. What better type of organization than one that is influenced and really driven by the membership, who are in the communities, who know what's needed, and it's not from up on high, Maria and team are making up this thing. It's you as a servant leader are reacting to the needs of the community, right? And and seeing, what do you want? What do you need? How can we help? Let's find that and then bring you that resource, right?
That's perfectly put. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I have a lot here that I've written down. This has been kind of a heck of an education for me. I do want to, we kind of talked about Long Island. I do want to talk about that later in the show, about how I might be able to impact you. And while I say that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our friend and colleague who connected us, because when you play nonprofit sector connector, as I do, and you hang out with a lot of great people, you meet somebody like Vicki Elner, my friend, who I just spoke to Vicki yesterday morning. I think she said she's listening. I hope you are. If you are, thank you, Vicki. I love you. I appreciate you being here, making this connection. But I met Vicki many years ago through her organization, Senior Umbrella Network of Brooklyn, Sun B, and she's been involved in this community for many moons. And so it's that kind of opportunity and connection that makes me be able to meet somebody like you and get out here and be able to tell this story.
Vicki has been not only a friend, but also a wonderful partner in all of the things that we do. And she's super involved with Statewide and with Brooklyn Wide. And we always support each other. So I'm very grateful that she introduced us as well.
Yeah, she's a great woman. And Vicki, I don't know if you'll remember this, and then we'll go to break in a second, but a bunch of years ago in Brooklyn, you had an event at a golf course and you had like a bunch of cool jewelry on. And at the time, so one of my daughters is 9, and this is probably 7 years ago. And I was like, Vicky, my daughter would love your whole scene, man. You're like with the jewelry and the whole thing.
The energy. Yep.
Yeah, and I was like the whole vibe. And so, Vicky, I miss you. I haven't seen you in real life, only on these screens and on phones. So I hope sometime we can get together pretty soon. But at this point, we do have to go to a quick break again. When we come back, we're going to talk more about impact. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about potentially we'll get into a little bit about where the organization is going and the need. I have a lot of notes and things that I pulled off the website that I want to go into. So this is Philanthropy in Focus. Maria Alvarez is here, New York State Senior Wide Action Council, not just any old council. This is an action council, meaning they do stuff, right? It's not just pushing buttons. There's real stuff that goes on here. Maria, we will be right back after this break.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
I'd just like to give a quick shout out to Brendan Levy, who I will be introducing you to, Maria, who's a friend of mine. And I am sharing the website, folks. So this is Statewide's website right here. But Brendan from the Queen's Chamber of Commerce actually wrote that song and sings that song for me. So he's a friend of mine, Maria. And I want to, as I looked at my notes during break, I said Queen's Chamber. And I said, I remember we talked about that on Monday. So I want to hook you up with the Chamber because I think they can be there's could be some value add there as well. But I am showing the website. You'll see a lot to check out here. There's an 800 number. Is that a hotline number right there, Maria?
Yes, that 800 number is the number that you call for everything. So we have 3 helplines that run through that. If you just have a question, a comment, whatever, just give us a call there. We want to hear from you.
All right. So if you're only listening and not watching, that 800 number is 1-800-333-4374, 1-800-333-4374. I'm going to stop my screen share in a second so you get to see Maria and I again, and we are back on the show. All right. So listen to this. In 1995, Maria had the honor of being named one of New York State's delegates to the White House Conference on Aging. And she participates in a number of these advisory boards, boards of directors, and coalitions that are in the space. What do I always talk about, right? It's about sharpening your saw. It's about staying current. It's about staying involved. In 2019, she was awarded the Advocates Award by the New York State Society on Aging. Maria, whether you want it or not, you're in this space. This is your space, man. This is it, you know? So,
I know there's no turning back here.
No turning back now. You're all in, kid. I mean, just to say, like, you know, going back to my handwriting is kind of sloppy here, but the Puerto Rican Hispanic, what were the on aging, what was the name of that organization again?
The Institute for the Puerto Rican and Hispanic Elderly.
So that goes back. I mean, it's all these years and to where you are now. So I have a lot of things here. I wrote down age-friendly banking, New York State observation laws, patient handling law, refunding of elderly pharmacy. Like, let's talk about some of those initiatives too, like impact-wise, what's happened and what's out there.
So, okay. So the way that statewide works is that, so we get information, right? It could be through our helpline, somebody calling that they need help for, with their billing, or they think that they might have given away their Medicare information without realizing it, and somebody might be able, it's almost like identity theft, but it's health identity theft. They might say, I'll give you one example. One was the observation status. People were calling us on our helplines and saying, I'm receiving these bills from the hospital, or from, saying that I owe them $30,000 or $20,000. I've been in the hospital before. I've been in the hospital for this reason before, and I've never been responsible for this. What is this? And of course, our population they don't like bills. they like paying things off. They get nervous.
Get it? Yeah, like I don't want this on my credit.
Yeah. And they get nervous if they see that something is happening, that they're being charged, especially, anybody would be nervous with a $30,000 bill. So we kept on getting it. So once we start hearing it, and then we go out into the community and we start, giving presentations, and people coming up to us saying, look, I have this issue, these bills. So then we start seeing that there are trends. Our board members start calling us and telling us this is what's happening. So what we found was that there was, as a result of the Affordable Care Act, when, Obamacare, how most people know it, when it was passed, they identified that a lot of Medicare beneficiaries were being readmitted into the hospital for, many times very quickly, but also for the same reasons. So what the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, concluded was that they were not being discharged properly into the community. There's a whole host of things that you have to assure that a facility should ensure before discharging somebody into the community. So they said, well, if that's the case, that you are discharging people improperly, we are going to penalize the hospital or the nursing home for doing that. And we will only be paying them at the rate of outpatient, because there's a difference between inpatient and outpatient. Up to then, most people thought observation, I'm putting you in for observation, right? You hear that all the time. You think that that's just a figure of speech. No, it's a billing term. So anyway, people were not aware of this, and so the hospital said, well, great, I'm not going to admit that. We're not going to admit patients. We're just going to place them under observation.
Well, because from a financial standpoint, they go, well, if you're not going to pay us for it, well, then we're not going to keep you around, right?
Right. Well, what's going to happen is that then there's an implication on who's paying for the service and how much.
Right. Okay. So
especially if you are going into a nursing home, let's say you broke your hip, right? And this is for Medicare beneficiaries, right? So if you broke your hip and you're being placed under observation and not being admitted, right? And putting you into a nursing home, guess who's paying? It's not Medicare. Medicare is not going to pay for that because you were never admitted into the hospital. You didn't spend 3 nights, all of these things that they have. Right. And so people were coming home from a nursing home with, $30,000, $90,000 worth of service and not knowing why. They were never informed that this was an issue.
So this came up to you and your awareness and the organization's awareness after it was happening to people, right?
Right. This was a new wrinkle. I mean, it's not like observation status was anything new. It's just that it was being employed more as a tactic. So
it's that feedback loop with the community, with the grassroots nature of things. You go, oh, shoot, there's something here that we need to now look at and educate our folks and get it to the local chapters and get the data out again, right?
Right, and get the information out. And, we make toolkits, brochures that then inform people, and then we make presentations and we disseminate in the community. But what ended up happening was we were able to get the New York State, this is a federal issue, so that initially the legislature was saying, well, this is a federal issue. So, but we were saying the issue here is that nobody knows that this is happening. So we need to require the hospitals to inform the patient that they are being placed under observation, so that they are prepared and that they could call their insurance company, or that they could make other arrangements, so because they deserve to know how they're going to be treated and what's going to be the after effect of this.
How important is it give another shout out. Vicky says thanks for the shout out. So Vicky, of course, we love you. So, but one of the ways I know Vicky as well, or I see her, is through the Health and Business Alliance, which is an organization here that I'm on the board of for a number of years. And there's patient advocates that are members of that group. And how important is it in your experience for these seniors to have somebody, caregivers? There's this whole talk about caregivers. I mean, I've recently, I'd say in the last 18 to 24 months, realized I am actually part of the sandwich generation. Like, I sort of knew it technically, but there was no real impact of it. But now within the last about 2 years, I've seen the real impact with some family stuff going on. So from a caregiver perspective, how often does the organization engage with advocates and caregivers and things like that?
Well, we obviously, we have, one thing about Statewide, we work in coalition with a lot of other organizations. We obviously can't do everything ourselves. So we definitely have, organizations that we work with constantly, that we have, at certain points we have common interests. So we strategize together, and we represent, we make presentations at each other's meetings and things like that. But the thing is that what happened in that case was that the constituents, our members who are constituents, who are very well connected with their elected officials, they become that. If you're a member of Statewide, it's because you care, you want to make a difference. So these are people who are also leaders in other organizations. They activated their members, and they started calling the elected officials and the governor's office later on when it was necessary. And we were able to get the first observation status law in the country that then became national law. And that basically says that within 24 hours, a patient needs to be verbally and orally told that they're being placed under observation, and what they can do about that. And in the COVID, the observation status has been relaxed, and we hope that it just goes away, because it's really a terrible thing to even have, a terrible policy to even have. If you're sick, you should just get care. But that's sort of the model of how we get things done.
Yeah. So I wanted, if you could differentiate for me, we only have a minute or so before we go to break, but when you say member, I think, can anyone who's of age become a member to be connected? Is there a membership fee? And then there's, these other folks that I'm seeing as a different class or different grouping of the actionable members. Can you just differentiate that real quick?
Yeah, well, so we are made up of individuals, caregivers, like I said, anybody 18 and over, a resident of New York State can join us, or organizations as well join us, right? And our memberships are very nominal. It's $20 for an individual membership a year. And I think 25 for a couple, something like that, 40 for a couple. And you could become a lifetime member too, and it's more the commitment to, it's the price of a magazine if you subscribe. Yeah. So we encourage people to join us.
So there could be just I don't mean just, but I could simply be a member, to receive access to services, or I could be somebody who's involved with the mission and the advocacy. Is that are those?
No, access to services is for anybody. You don't have to be a member because we're funded through the government, so we do not turn anybody away.
Okay, so when I say member paying my small nominal fee, now I'm in the game. I'm part of the mission. I'm,
Right.
Okay.
You could be right.
I can carry
get
the
it.
ball down the field. Understood.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So this is cool. We're going to take a quick break. So much here. I have papers everywhere. I've been writing a lot of notes. So here's when we come back. I want to talk about the future of the organization, what the organization needs. And we can even talk about that, what some have told me, and I've lived here my whole life, but is eventually going to be the 51st state. I don't know if that's true. Long Island, supposedly, I think 44 years, I haven't really seen anything like that. But I don't think it would, even if it was another state, it wouldn't make it any easier to get off this island, because I had to get off this island the other day and it's a nightmare to do. So sometimes it's just.
I know somebody told me it took 2.5 hours to get into Manhattan the other morning.
It's not even, that's why I don't leave anymore. So we will be right back to talk about the future of this incredible organization. Thanks, Maria. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Join us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern for the Mind Behind Leadership, where we focus on what leadership really means to us and to others. We have practical discussions with the CEOs of some of the world's largest companies, owners of small businesses, and experts in psychology and behavior to get that inside track, what to do, what to avoid, and what really happens. Join me, Graham Dobbin, at the new time, 4 p.m. every Tuesday for the Mind Behind Leadership, here live on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc. Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join me in my attic, please. That's it's like a thought. It's not really a request or a statement. Just join me in the attic, but don't literally join me in the attic because there's no room. All right, so this is Philanthropy and Focus. 3.2 million. 3.2 million is the number of residents of New York State 65 years or older. That's a bit larger than the entire population of 21 states. I don't even understand how that's, like, I have to check the statistics, but the internet told me that. So maybe tell me about that, Maria, because it says 16% of New Yorkers are 65 years or older. This is a big portion. And not, we talked, you and I was joking would be the wrong way to say this, but we talked about this earlier in the week, and it was like 65 years old years ago was you retire, and tragically, you're not around a couple of years later. Now you and I did kind of chuckle about this. You got half a life left, like potentially after 50 years old, 55 years old, right? So let's discuss how many people we're addressing and then really where what we're going to go in the future.
Okay, so yes, but your statistics are true. 3.2 million seniors in New York State, 16% of the population. But think about it, and by the year 2030, it's going to be 25% of the population. That's just 8 years away. 25% of New York State will be 65 and over.
And potentially not working. Now, we know plenty of people are going to be working, but right,
but they're just starting at 65.
Right.
Obviously, it's adding on, right, to what's already here. So not only are they not working, although a lot of seniors are still working now, and we're seeing that trend where more people are staying in the workforce later, or, longer, or rejoining longer, for a few reasons. One is because they're still vital, right? I mean, I know that when I was growing up, 65 seems so old and everything. 65 today, you're still young. You were telling me about your grandmother having been 71. I was like, oh, that was very young.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the thing about it is, like, it's funny because I don't know about you, but I remember like retirement used to be like a destination to go to, right? Like that was like
you're gonna sit down and
like you
drink
just
pina colada and
obviously the thing that, or like pink lemonade. Remember the old time? I can't remember the country time lemonade. The two old guys on the rocking
the rocking chair.
Yeah, right. Like on the porch. Like I thought that was retirement, but like I don't actually ever see me not doing like things anymore.
Right.
Like what is that? Like I would rather weave my retirement into the next 50 years. Like be retired one day a week, like, or 2 days a week or whatever.
Right. And people do that.
You know what I mean?
And for different reasons, like I said, some is because they're still able to do it and they want to. Some is because they can't afford to not get an income for a while. Like we were talking about the other day, I was telling you, the person who's going to live to be 120 years old is already born. So if you're going to live to 120, I know my family lives forever, so I'm going to live to 100. If they retire at 65, they still have potentially 55 more years to live. Now, let's think about that. What is my life going to be? What is going to look like at 65 and then going afterwards? Am I going to be able? Was I able to even save enough money to be able to afford that? The actuaries are showing. You were talking about the sandwich generation.
Yeah.
The issue with that is that many people in the sandwich generation are taking care of their children and they're taking care of their parents. If the parents cannot afford a lot of things, and it's shown that caregivers end up paying somewhere close to 20% of their own incomes on issues that they need to resolve for their parents.
That's really scary. Like, and it came up for me the other day. I was listening to, some folks might be familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
So I was listening to, I've been into his stuff for years, but I was cleaning out the garage on, I think it was Sunday. And I was listening on my phone to some of his stuff, something he wrote a long time ago called the Cash Flow Quadrant. And he was talking in terms of, well, we talk about a lot about assets and liabilities. And, while this is not a financial show, it's, people think their home is an asset. In actuality, it's a liability. He said, you know what else could be a liability? People, family, a drain. So, and I don't mean that to sound negative. I'm just trying to be practical for everybody. But that could be a situation where if your adult parents have not done the proper planning,
right.
Well, they're sort of now on your payroll. And what does that look like as a, if you're, no disrespect to anybody, but if you're just a W-2er and you don't have other businesses and different,
you don't have active,
right? You don't have things
active
going
income
on.
coming in. Yeah.
And maybe you're a person who was like, well, I'm going to be a pensioner. I'm going to retire at some point myself. Well, how? Now you're supporting, you might be 65, but they're 82 or 85 or whatever. And
they're going to be around for a longer time. And that's the issue. How do you afford that? But, there's another wrinkle to all of this, Tommy, which I hate to bring up. But for example, many women have been in and out of the world of work throughout their entire careers. Why? Because traditionally, now men are doing this too, but traditionally women are, care for their children. So they take off because they need to. And then many times the caregiver for the parents is the daughter, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen many cases where they have to leave work or reduce work or not get an advancement in work because they can't handle extra responsibilities because they have to care for their parent or their children. So what does that mean in their future, right? They're not accumulating Social Security quarters. They're not putting money into their retirement, right? So when they finally retire, potentially they could retire with more need than the person they were caring for,
So
right?
it continues to snowball.
Exactly.
We have to leave this part of the conversation there because I want to give you one quick minute to tell me about what we can do to help and who you want to connect with before we close the show.
Oh, well, I want to connect with everybody. I love everybody that I saw who's reaching out. That is great. No, but really, we need people who are interested. If you are interested in making a difference in the community, join us. Join us on we have telephone teach-ins, we have virtual family councils. These are all free and open to the community. You can check us out and see if you like what we're doing. We definitely, we're having a 50th anniversary. Come to Saratoga Springs. It's right after.
When is that?
For the first time in 2 years, it's in person.
When is that?
So,
give us a date.
September 12th to the 14th. It's right after Labor Day. The kids are back in school, and the weather's still nice in Saratoga Springs.
Beautiful up there.
Yeah, and come. It's only 3 days. It's over a period of 3 days, and we have a great time. And if not, just go to Saratoga Springs. We have a lot of elected officials, a lot of the committee chairs on aging and health come, and it's a very special year. It's 50 years, so you'll see a good perspective of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going.
Maria, thank you for being my friend. It sounds like Golden Girls. And talk about people who age well. Betty White, unfortunately, we lost Miss Betty White, but
I know
she's 100 years old. We talk a lot about that. We talk a lot on PALS, the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, which I do with my partner in that project, Valerie Heffron, here on the network on Wednesdays. So 1-800-333-4374. That's how you get the organization. Or if you're on the internet, you go to nysenior.org, nysenior.org. Maria, thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
I'm a member. I'll be a member. And I also want to talk to you about connecting you with the Queen's Chamber, which I'm happy to sponsor.
Oh, I could think of a bunch of things that I want to do with you. So
we're going to have a lot of fun. Plus, I'm going to do a day's service. Vicki and I were talking about it. I'm going to do a day's service on behalf of the
I might be joining you in that.
Oh my God, how fun. All right. Well, both you're wearing red, I'll wear red. It'll be very cool. It's that.
Yeah, we'll stay white red always, you know.
Very cool. Baby. All right. So listen, this has been Philanthropy in Focus. I am always your nonprofit sector connector. Come back here next week, please. I'd like to see you again. It's very special to have you all visit me in the attic because I actually have a little note that I'll share with you, and then we got to go. Little Flower Children and Family Services of New York. Corinne Hammonds, the CEO, will be here with me. Little note for you guys. I'm actually the MC of their gala, their virtual gala, which is in a few weeks in May. More to come on that, but Corinne and I will be talking about it next week. Sam Leibowitz, thank you for your leadership on the other side of the glass, as they say in the business, although there's really no other side of the glass. We're in separate rooms, in separate buildings, and all that kind of stuff. But I appreciate your leadership, Sam. Maria, it was so fun hearing you, seeing you. Have a great day, everybody. I'm Tommy D. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.